what has gone wrong? Well, one, when I went into politics almost half a century ago, and even to a lesser degree when Larry started, most voters in Oregon were Republican or Democrat. When I first went into politics, 98% of the voters were either R or D, and 2% was everything else, socialist, communist, whatever parties there were. So you had moderates in both parties that were inclined to temper the nominees that were picked in both parties. Today you have almost a third of the voters registered as independent. They can't vote in the primary. Now, what would cause a person to leave his party and yet not join the other party? Unless he is so mad at his party, but he doesn't really like the other party, that he's willing to leave his party and give up his vote in the primary. Well, that is what has happened to both parties, Republican and Democrat. So who does that leave you in the parties? More and more, it leaves you the extremes in both parties, who are inclined to have a stronger hand in picking the nominee because the moderates have left the party and become independent. And more often than not, you get zealots who are nominated. The worst part about zealots is they have no sense of humor. They're absolutely convinced they are right. And if you don't agree with them, you are wrong or dumb or corrupt or probably all three. But there's no conceivable way that you could disagree with the zealot's position without being wrong. And therefore, the possibility of negotiating compromises gets tougher. Now, what could you do in Oregon to stop it? And here at least be my suggestions. One, let the parties open up their primaries to independents. They can do it by party rule if they want. It doesn't require a statute. Either party can do it. Neither party will do it because the zealots in each party don't want their primary tainted by people that are not registered in the party. So that's your first hurdle. Secondly, if you can't open that up, go to nonpartisan elections, as we do with most municipal elections and many county commission. Most of the elections in Oregon are actually nonpartisan. Now, are there people who are Republican and Democrat? Yes. But does R or D appear on the ballot? No. And it's amazing. We seem to govern our cities and govern our counties, and we get along, for better or for worse, somehow, without quite the bitterness that you see in partisan forums. Now, does everybody on the Eugene City Council like each other, love each other, hug each other? No. Are they reasonably civil publicly? Reasonably. Yes, reasonably. But much more so than if it was Republican, Democrat, or Republican Socialist, or Republican whatever, Communist, whoever. Go to nonpartisan elections, and I realize what's going to happen. In districts that are heavily Democrat, the top two people in the primary may be two Democrats. But at least you, in a general election, would have a choice between two, and you could pick the one that you thought was the more centrist. You'd have districts that are so Republican that the two nominees would probably be Republican, unless somebody got 50% of the vote in the primary, in which case they get the election. But the same way it works now. But until we come to something like that, I think you're going to see this rather than this. Now, again, I want to emphasize who's going to oppose it. You try to go to a nonpartisan primary, both political parties will oppose it. Most of the so-called special interest organizations, although I hate that term because it's always used as a pejorative by somebody who doesn't like the other side, but there are more special, like the American Nursing Association, special interest group, sure. American Student Association, sure. National Association of Coffee House Makers, yes, they're all special interests. They all have an interest. Doesn't mean they're terrible. They just have a unique interest because of their business. But the special interest organizations that have tremendous clout in primaries, Republican and Democrat, being able to nominate people that will support their special interest are not going to want to make this change either, because they lose the capacity to have in my mind, inordinate influence on a primary election. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We can get back to bipartisanship, but it would be a lot easier to get back to it if we had some kind of system of elections that allowed moderates in both parties a chance to be nominated And then, if you had moderates in both parties be nominated, my hunch would be you would see a lot of compromises achieved that at the moment are impossible to achieve because of this bitter division. Thank you very much.